1-2, swinging a drive toward right center. Back goes Robert, back near the stands. That ball is gone. A game-winning home run for Chris Burrell. Can you believe it? Listen to this crowd.
Welcome back to the Brotherly Cubs podcast. I'm your little brother Zach, and that's my big brother John. We are your brothers who love everything Cubs baseball. If you enjoy Cubs baseball, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and join us every week as we dive into the oldest team in the National League Central.
We like to start off each podcast with a playful question for all 126 of our subscribers. Zach, today I ask you, who is remaining on your Cubs wish list, and have the Cubs owners been naughty or nice?
On my wish list are guys like Corbin Burnes and Pete Alonso, and I would say the owners have been very naughty. That turned out way more sexual than I thought.
It's what you make of it, man. It's what you make of it.
They've been so naughty.
If you want it to be naughty and with sexual undertones, I guess we can make
Jed
it that
Hoerner
way.
has been so naughty this year.
He deserves a spanking. And that's our podcast for today. Yeah, I would say kind of in between, right? I mean, kind of naughty, kind of nice. Who is remaining on the Cubs wish list? Yeah, I would agree. Pete Alonso. I think they still need a slugger. They still need to add some hitting. A little bit of, bullpen and starting pitching, but yeah, I mean, they've kind of been great in the fact that they got, Kyle Tucker, so
yeah, that was, kind of unprecedented for this particular front office group. I mean, maybe something Theo might have done because they made some big trades. Chapman, Lester, Zobrist, like pretty huge signings and big Joe Madden, big plays that the Theo Epstein front office as PBO with Jed Hoyer as the GM. Now that Jed Hoyer's in the driver's seat, it felt like they've been very risk averse, try and win sustainably, but they've been winning a little bit, not quite sustainably. I mean, the farm system is sustainable. So yeah, it's right. Kind of, they're right in the middle right now. They need to start taking some big swings. I think Kyle Tucker is a big swing for sure.
Yeah. And they, like people have mentioned, obviously, I mean, it's the facts, but we have 7 in the top 100 still and for our prospects. So
that's solid.
We're pretty healthy. Yeah. I mean, if we could even come away with 4 or 5, I think, while still adding maybe in a trade, I think we'd be in good shape,
Oh yeah. I mean, that's I think the expectation still is to move a couple of those guys and still be in a good spot. Right. And still do the same thing they've been doing, draft well and develop within a couple of years, start to get yourself a guy in the top 100 again and keep replenishing that system.
Right. Well, Zach, the Cubs needed to clear some salary in their pursuit of these free agents, and they did that with trading Cody Bellinger to the Yankees for Cody Poteet. If I'm saying that right, Poteet.
Cody Bellinger large and Cody Bellinger petite.
Petite. That's beautiful play on words right there, Zachary. Cubs are only paying $2.5 million per year on Bellinger's salary, as you've noted here. That's incredible. I mean, I think I was listening to our podcast. Shout out to our own podcast,
Brotherly Cubs.
And I think we were predicting, was it 5 to 10 or 5 to 7 million or something like that? Per year, yeah.
Per year, yeah.
So I think that's a success, on the front office.
Yeah, for sure.
Major, yeah. So having to only eat that much money on that deal is tremendous. And so, in other news, they've DFA'd Matt Thaiss. He went to the White Sox. Or Thaiss, Matt Thaiss. Sorry.
I think, yeah. It
doesn't matter anymore. He's not with. Cubs replaced him with 34-year-old catcher Carlos Perez. I didn't know a whole lot about him, Zach, but you have some great notes here. So he had a 650 OPS and 189 plate appearances with 6 home runs, 20 RBIs with the A's last year in 2023. He had an 888 OPS, 27 home runs, 77 RBI, and 468 plate appearances in AAA last year. So
So
does that translate to kind of like a quadruple A
yeah,
type
I think
player?
so.
Maybe kind of like a Matt Mervis, but as a catcher.
I mean, yeah, he had actually even a better OPS than Mervis did. He's older, way older.
Yeah, 34. Yeah.
Stereotypical like third catcher type role. The Cubs sign this guy basically every year, but this guy's got at AAA a pretty good pop last year, and then in 2023 with the A's, 650 OPS is actually right about the range the Cubs were looking for free agents as catchers. Carson Kelly, Elias Diaz, and Danny Jansen at some point or other in their career have had an OPS in the 600s for multiple seasons. So it's not unprecedented to have an older catcher that's getting part-time work with a 650 OPS. A little bit of pop. I mean, he's certainly, you're going to rely heavily on a Maya and then Carson Kelly as your tandem. And then if there's an injury, you need to put him on the 40-man roster and get him up there. This is not a bad signing. I mean, pretty impressive for an under-the-radar signing.
Would you kind of equate it to maybe those numbers similarly to when Yan Gomes was kind of hitting a little bit? Maybe 6 to 10 home runs. Maybe not 10 home runs, but
Oh, I mean, I would love another 2023 Yan Gomes, aka Gas Money. You need gas. They said you need gas money to get home. That's what they call
Yes, you do. Yeah.
He was so clutch. Seventh inning or later, just like, and batting at the end of the lineup, it's like, man, we really need to hit your man on second, 2 outs, 2-2 game. Boom, Yan Gomes base hit. If they could get anything like that out of this guy, that's a massive home run of a signing.
Right. Yeah, I'm excited to see what he can add. Just as a backup, obviously not as a starting catcher, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
That's why we have Carson Kelly. But other news around the league, Christian Walker, first baseman Christian Walker, signed with the Astros on a 3-year, $60 million deal. It's good value for him. Walker Buehler signed with the Red Sox 1 year, just under, I think, 21 million, right? 20 point something.
Yeah.
Sean Manaea signed back with the Mets, 3 years, 75 million. Great deal for him. Pretty good deal for the Mets. I think it's maybe a little bit of an overpay. He might regress a little bit this year.
That's an overpay. Yeah, I agree. That's a hefty deal for him.
It's the Mets. Like, what do you expect? They're going to overpay, of course.
Yeah.
Jesus Luzardo was traded to the Phillies. I'm not bothered about that. Just because of the medicals, something didn't clear right. I'm not comfortable including, maybe rumored Owen Casey or James Triantos in that deal. I just don't think he's a bona fide ace. Like, if he's I would do it, of course, but he's maybe a 3 or 4.
I think he's higher than a 4. It's really just the injuries that have set him back. And if you looked at sort of Buehler's numbers, he has really bad numbers recently because of injury, but when he was on, he was really good. So
that one kind of bothers me a little bit, but I mean, it is what it is. Roki Sasaki met with several teams in LA this week, including the Cubs. Obviously, the Cubs are not considered front runners, but that would be a nice surprise in our stocking this year, right?
I don't know if he can fit in the stocking, John.
Well, we can always.
I mean, he's small.
He's small. We haven't really set the parameters for a stocking size, so who knows how big the stocking can actually
be. I Shrunk Roki Sasaki.
Yeah, nice.
Put him in your stocking.
Sequel to those other 2 movies. Pitchers that are still available here. So obviously Corbin Burnes, Jack Flaherty. We mentioned Sasaki, Verlander. He's kind of old. He's been old.
Oh yeah.
Scherzer has been old. They're both 41, I think.
Yeah, and they were getting paid a lot of money for being that old and pitching.
And I have, of course, Rich Hill. He's technically on the list, and Patrick Corbin, my favorite. Patrick Corbin reference once again.
Yeah.
No, Burnes, that's a Boris client, right?
Yeah, he's a Boris guy.
So we're out on that.
He's also a Council guy. You think he's a big fan of Council. That puts him at least less in the whole Boris territory than normal, I'd say.
Right.
I mean, we might be a sleeper team.
What's kind of weird though is like there's been what 2 relievers like Colby Milner signed with Texas.
Yeah.
Last year was it Suter? Brent Suter signed with
Yes,
someone
and
else, the Reds or something.
yeah, the Reds, and those were weird for me because I thought, oh, this is a Cubs move, cheap,
Right.
lefty, funky
Affordable,
arm
yeah.
angle. They like this.
Right.
Remember Steve Cishek, Jose Cuas.
Right.
They like the weird arm angles.
Right.
What was I gonna say? Oh, Brendan Woodruff, decent deal, but he went to the Brewers, went back to the Brewers. Cubs could have had him. He could have reunited with Counsell. I've been expecting
Right.
Counsell to have worked some magic with some of these former
Something.
Brewers, and it has
Right.
not happened. And so
Yeah.
it's a little frustrating. I mean,
It
to be honest.
is. It's just so. I mean, there were rumors about Burnes going to San Francisco, which I could see that. I could see them shelling out, money to buckle down their, rotation.
Yeah.
Jack Flaherty, I think, if you could get him on a good deal, I would love that.
Yeah.
Maybe he's still young. Obviously, he's the youngest, I think, of the free agent pitchers, the most impactful free agent pitchers that are left. But if you could get him on maybe 2 or 3 year deal.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Christian Walker and Sean Manaea deals in the show notes, and that's about where I'd figure. I actually thought Buehler would sign for a similar amount, but if you could get him
Okay.
3 for 60, 3 for 70, the
Not
only issue
paid.
then is if you had 40 million left to spend, and you'd have to go and get someone cheap for third base,
Right.
and then you just have about, it could work. It could. I think honestly, just to be completely honest, I do think this is one of those things where if they didn't have irons in the fire, so to speak, with all these other trade rumors, I think they might have already pounced
Right.
on one of these guys. And I think again, if they can get him at 20 million AV, Jack Flaherty, that could just maybe barely fit into their budget with the 40 million they have left. Getting someone like Moncada or maybe Josh Rojas or some of these other sort of backup type infielders, 5-6 million a year plus 20 million, and you have 14-15 million to spend on 2 relievers. That could probably fit with the Cubs budget. But if the starting pitcher market from here goes any higher than 25, I think then they're going to lose the leverage they have with those other relievers. They need a lefty. And so I think they're kind of trying to balance these 3 or 4 moves all within each other, right? There's sort of a budget for each move. And if they go over budget on one, they have to really cut off on the other ones.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly the money that how much money they have to play with right now, but we mentioned the starters. They're obviously rumored to be in on the reliever market.
Yeah.
For me, I would love Kyle Finnegan and Will Smith. I think, they need another lefty veteran. Hey, maybe he could teach, the other lefties in our bullpen, Luke Little, something,
Rob Zastryzny.
Rob Z, as people are more comfortable calling him.
Yeah.
Cody Delmendo. Yeah, I'm not comfortable saying his last name, so I don't know how to say it. Zastryzny, something like that.
Intrinsic.
Yeah, let's just go with that. So I mean, if you sign Will Smith, very solid, reliever, veteran reliever. You have your lefty there. Kyle Finnegan is your absolute closer for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But you have other pieces too that could close. Like if he does experience an injury, you have, Julian Merriweather. Who am I thinking? Who was our closer last year? I'm drawing a blank.
Porter Hodge.
There we go.
And they're suspiciously out on Jorge Lopez, who is pretty freaking good.
That's crazy, man. Yeah.
I would have thought that was like a 1A type easy move, but I wonder if the AV if it falls down, maybe they get him.
Yeah.
But I don't think they want to sign 3 relievers because there's one problem that you can have in the bullpen. It's not having options in all of your relievers. So they start. I mean, we saw that, right? Look at Alzolay. If guys start sucking, they have to get put on the injured list in order to accommodate their sucking. And then they have a reset. That happened to Kyle Hendricks. It happened to Adbert Alzolay until he got a real injury.
Right.
Maybe it was a bad injury the whole time. Yeah, I think I agree. I think Finnegan, it makes sense. They're probably still looking for the right money. And then Will Smith, I'm glad you brought him up. His ERA sometimes goes up and down, but he's still pretty consistent. He's getting a little bit older, I think, too. Kirby Yates, I think, is still an option, right?
Right. He's old
Um,
too, and
he's old, but he had a 1-something ERA with like 38 saves.
he did. But remember, these relievers sometimes they don't
Yeah, it's
always
true.
stabilize, and so yeah, he was obviously a name that's been tossed around a lot, and so yeah, I mean, if you could get him on a cheap deal, maybe 1 or 2 year deal, player option a second year or something, I think Kirby Yates could definitely be, a decent closer for you. But as far as third baseman, so third base is kind of the other, I want to say hole, because they really obviously long term view Matt Shaw as competition. Or I mean, that's kind of like the competition for these other guys that are possibly going to be signed. So Josh Rojas, affordable, great defensively, terrible offensively. I'm not sure I'm going to say this right because I've heard people say it differently, but Yoan Moncada,
Yeah,
too much money for me, honestly. If you look at his contract, I think it's like 14 million or something like that. And if he's going to ask for, he's a free agent, he's obviously going to get paid 17 to 20, I would think.
but he's hasn't done well
His
recently, right?
OPS has increased the last 3 years, but
Well,
it's
he had how many at bats last year?
I think it was
40.
like it was very limited. I
I would
think
look at 2022 and say he fell off a lot by
20 yeah,
150 points on OPS,
yeah.
and then he
Yeah,
went back
it's
up to
definitely
730. I mean, if you look at his WAR, I'm trying to pull that up. I thought I had it up here a second ago, but oh, here we go. So in 2021, he was really good, 3.7 WAR. In 2022, 0.8 WAR, and then his last full season and full season-ish in 2023, 1 WAR. A 1 WAR player as back-to-back years, that's not a $20 million player. Now
no.
his 2021
That's
season, if that was his walk year, that would be worth. And he had a 5 WAR season a couple of seasons before that.
right.
So if you're 2 seasons out of the last 3 compiles 9 WAR, you're going to get a massive contract. But then the same thing with Bellinger. I mean, look at how his market really cratered when he was a 4 or 5 win player and he dropped down to like that 1-2 range and had a couple slumping years. That will
Right.
decrease your market. And so I don't think anyone would pay him thinking he's only come off 1 down year. He hasn't. I think he still has value. He hasn't cratered. He's not like doesn't seem like he's a contact type guy. Career almost 30% strikeout. I think he could be had for the right money. He's a switch hitter. I thought he played third and second. It does say on here second and third.
Primarily
So
third, I think. Yeah.
that I mean,
Um,
I think they're looking for a third baseman who can defend well that position.
right. And so, I was just thinking as you were talking, I was also thinking, and listening, still listening to what you're saying, but what about Justin Turner? Like if they trade
Yes.
for Justin Turner
Well, I've tossed that
with
one around.
Seattle, right? Like it'd be probably a big package for Luis Castillo, and if you could somehow include Justin Turner in that deal, or is he
He's
he's under contract, right? With
he's a
Seattle.
free agent.
Was
I
he a
thought,
free agent?
well, he just threw some shade at Jeff Passan because Jeff Passan left him off the list of best available free agents. Oh, he's going to turn 40 though. So
Oh, well, again, he's kind of your gap, right? Your bridge gap between
yeah,
Matt Shaw. I would
that's a
venture a
tough
guess
one.
to say Triantos might be pushing second base. Not
Yeah.
next year, but the year after. And you could always move Bush over, like if you sign a first baseman. I mean, there's different things they could do. But I just thought about with Seattle, like if no, I guess you said he's a free agent. So
Here's my issue. I would love Justin Turner. have had a bit of a down year last year, like only 14% above average OPS. Slug was down. Not like an amazing year. I would just be curious, like looking at the data, how many games he played last year at third base, because I don't think he was playing much third base. For the Mariners and the Blue Jays last year, and probably mostly first base. But if he was playing third, then I would be in on him, like almost as my number one target, just because he's had such a good track record, right? He has had such a good career, and he'd be a really good veteran presence. But just defensively, you'd probably lose quite a bit at third there, and then you'd really be depending on Shaw to defend well at third, right? Or
Right.
do something creative to get around that. And so he'd end up probably mostly being like a platoonish kind of guy with Michael Busch at first against lefties. And everybody can match lefties. So like I think he'd be your guy who gets maybe when you give Tucker a breather, he could DH. But I think the Cubs will probably go for a more well-rounded player. Like slightly younger, probably. I'm not saying they won't sign a guy who's like in his high 30s or 40. I do think there's a guy, throw another name out there, Paul DeJong, who's played short and third. Also not young, but has obviously had some power in the past.
Right.
Oh, no. Paul DeJong is only 31. I might be getting him mixed up. I think he just fell off, and that's why I think he's sold.
Hey, man.
But
I'm 38, but I'm not falling off, right? Don't tell me I'm falling off.
Paul DeJong hit 24 home runs last year, so
I would take him. I mean, he's a former Cardinal, but still, I mean,
but he's a year or two removed. So if he likes the Midwest, and he played Missouri now for St. Louis and Kansas City, so it's one of those things where Paul DeJong to me is one of my top targets, along with Jorge Polanco. But Moncada, I think these are all sort of value steals. I think they're all going to look for who can take less than $10 million a year. Can they get 7? Because they're going to play Shaw quite a bit next year. And at this point, now I'm wondering if that market's not good enough to move Hoerner. They don't feel like they then have to depend heavily on like guys like Polanco or Rojas or Moncada, like not even just platoon, but everyday third baseman type. I think they're scared of what would happen there.
Yeah, I mean, there's still obviously a ton of time between now and March or April, so I mean, anything could materialize. But yeah, we'll see. Moncada is kind of, I definitely don't think they will sign him. I just, like I said, he's going to cost too much. And I think if you find someone kind of in the middle between Josh Rojas and Yoan Moncada, I think maybe that's a Turner. I like Polanco. Polanco would be great. There's also Bregman. But then you could move Shaw to maybe second?
Yeah. I have some.
So,
I wanted to end this show by us just going full. What if the Cubs go all in? So I wrote down. One of the ideas was to move Busch to second, which he did a little bit last year. I still like that idea, even if you take a defensive fallout, because my thought is, okay, you could do that, or if you keep Busch at first and put Shaw at second, trade Hoerner to the Mariners, free up that $10 or $11 million. Trade Hoerner with like 3 or 4 prospects, just go all out and get a top pitcher who's like pre-arbs. He's going to cost like $2-3 million or whatever the minimum is, right? So you save money on starting pitching. You aren't spending much there. And then you're putting all of your excess money into Alex Bregman at third. And now you've got replaced Paredes. You've got Shaw at second, Busch at first. Like you've got a core. You upgrade your offense from Hoerner to Bregman, and obviously from Bellinger to Tucker, right? So you're making offensive upgrades.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you're getting a top starting pitcher that can team up with Steele and Imanaga. But I think more realistically, they will probably move Shaw to third, and Hoerner will stay. And then, like we've discussed, obviously that's probably What is your pie in the sky type? If they were to go all in, what do you think they would do?
You're asking me my pie in the sky?
Yeah, I mean, go for it.
I think so. I mean, yeah, what you said right there. Just looking at your notes, you mean Kirby or Wu or Gilbert, one of those three?
A Mariners pitcher, yeah, because
Yes,
Castillo
I
would
would say
cost two.
Gilbert. I would say probably, or well, no, I would say Kirby. I just like his walk rate. I think it was what 6%.
Yeah, they
I
all
don't
have
know.
good strikeout and good walk rates too.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably. I think you just need a straight up ace. I don't know if Wu is your top of the line. He's really, really good, and Gilbert as well. If I'm doing pie in the sky, I'm going Kirby,
Kirby, yeah,
and that's gonna probably require Owen Casey.
yeah,
It's gonna probably require Ballesteros, and it's gonna suck. But you know what you're getting with George Kirby. You don't really know for sure what you're getting with Owen Casey or Ballesteros, or
yeah,
maybe if it does cost even um, Triantos as well. I
yeah,
mean, maybe it does. He's like you said. I mean, they're controllable. These pitchers are controllable. That's huge. I mean, you're saving money right there, like you said, that you can invest in. People like Bregman.
yeah.
I think
And
if you're out, I was just going to say real quick, if you're able to add Bregman and Tucker to the Cubs, that's tremendous. Bregman is a very top-notch third baseman. He's
yeah,
probably top, what, 3 or 4 in the league, I
yeah,
would think. So, and then your right fielder is freaking Kyle Tucker. Like, the offense is fixed pretty much. But yeah, you would have to part with some prospects, and that'll hurt. But you gotta. What's the saying? Like you gotta
spend money to make money.
spend. There you go. That's a
Spend
great one.
prospects to make prospect.
Spend
Uh,
prospects to make aces.
yeah, I mean, if you save that money on pitching, then you could give that extra money to Bregman. And I was going to say they could still add, they could stay under the tax, and they could add like still a couple good relievers because
Yeah,
Bregman's not
that's
going to
true.
cost more than 30 million.
No, no,
And you
no.
have 40 million right now. If you have 50 million, subtract 30 for Bregman, you still have 20 million to spend on two relievers, and you're under the tax by that 10 million number that is talked about. And then you could stay under the tax this year. So yeah,
The danger of that, I mean, he's 30 years old, Bregman. So you're probably going to give him, his last contract, obviously, unless he somehow signs like a 3-year deal, 3 or 4-year deal.
I don't know what the
There's
read is
his
on
market
him, but he's
stalled. Alonso and Bregman's market has stalled recently. So I mean, maybe it does come down to where the Cubs are comfortable giving him something, not crazy, and they still can save money for Kyle Tucker in the future. But
yeah. Oh, I
see,
remember now my big light bulb moment is I feel like if Tucker is a fan of Alex Bregman, like they're friends, then signing Alex Bregman would be a bet, or it would be not necessarily a bet, but it would be a good step in the right direction towards re-signing Kyle Tucker, right?
yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
maybe you start to establish your core, and then you save. Um, I think Locked On Cubs brought this up recently. You could save like left field for Alcantara,
Yeah,
and then you still got PCA at center, Tucker and right. So you could trade Casey in that sense. If you have Shaw at second, you don't really need Triantos, and then catcher. Bush is locking down first, so you don't really need Ballesteros. Um, that's just, I think they're thinking about those options internally, thinking what prospects would we get rid of, and
hmm
so if we can hang on to one of them, okay, uh, or who's our future? Like, okay, let's say Shaw, and then who is redundant? Maybe Triantos. Okay, Amaya's our future, and maybe Ballesteros is sort of redundant, and then that's where you could trade that excess value.
right.
Um, and you still have, I don't know the math, but I think it's at least 2 more years on some of those guys from the Mariners. So you'd be getting what amounts to like free labor, and then you could have an inside
Yeah,
track at re-signing him.
yeah,
So just saying.
yeah. What are your That's your pie in the sky. What about your reality? What do you have here for your reality notes?
Yeah, I think we I
touched on
think
that.
we've pretty much. To me, I think Luis Castillo and the Mariners makes a lot of sense.
Hmm
Strikeout, power righty, consistent health. They got a guy like Boyd. They need more health. I think he's going to cost just enough to where he won't break the bank. they're not committing to adding much more offense, and they're only committing to adding a couple of relievers. So that could fit in that $40 million range.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it costs about 24, 25. I think that's right about the budget they want to spend.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not on like a super long-term deal. So I think it's Castillo
Okay.
or Flaherty. I think they're pretty much down to those two options. I don't know if anyone else can be had via trade at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's Pablo Lopez that was mentioned.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I just want to talk real quick, Zach, about before we wrap up about what are your thoughts on Seiya Suzuki being included in a Dodgers trade?
No thoughts.
I just first of all, I don't want to trade with the Dodgers unless you're fleecing them. I mean, and they're not going to be fleeced.
The Cubs have interest in Vladimir Guerrero. I mean, great. I'm glad you have interest in him. Glad
we
you've
continue
looked
to
at
be interest kings, like Cody Delmendo says. But
well, what are they trying to build? The country of Japan and Los Angeles? I mean, what is going on here? Jeez.
Yeah, absolutely cornering the market.
Yeah.
Maybe he's the missing piece for Roki Sasaki. I don't know.
Jeez.
I think he provides value. I'm not I'm not the biggest Suzuki fan, even though I bought a player T-shirt, a jersey, a jersey of Seiya. But I don't see us really trading, because then who would you get? You'd have to get a big leaguer back, I would think, unless you're freeing up money. I guess unless you do that to free up money.
They don't have healthy starting pitching that I would want, and so that's my issue. And then you free up the money, like you said. I don't know who you get from them, and then you go out and sign like Corbin Burnes. Okay, then it starts to make sense. But you need really more offense than pitching. So I would say they need Seiya with the offense right now. The way it's set up.
Yeah, you can't get rid of any more offense, So
right.
So just a couple closing notes here. So, we mentioned Roki Sasaki. He's not going to be signed until January 15th. So whether that's with LA or San Diego or whoever, we still have a ways to wait on him.
Right.
And we'll see. I mean, we'll see what the future holds. I mean, I'm not saying Sasaki would be, that we're out on him, but you never know.
They've got a meeting. I mean, the Phillies. I had forgotten to mention, but Luzardo going to the Phillies actually makes more sense for them because they've got a loaded rotation. They could afford an injury. But they had to make that move because they didn't get a Sasaki meeting. So at least the Cubs are in the frame.
Yeah,
and it's a good look for them to at least be getting a consideration with their Japanese market for sure.
Yeah, great point. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us here on the Brotherly Cubs podcast. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, or join the conversation with us on Twitter at Brotherly Cubs or Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I am your big brother, John, and that's my little brother, Zach. And we will see you next week. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you later.
Merry Christmas.
Yes. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Pretty soon.
All right. See ya.
Peace.
Listen to this crowd.